All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. Now, Conor McGregor posted an insane video during the Yair Rodriguez and Max Holloway fight, and we are going to talk about that. I'm going to warn you in advance, before I talk about that, I am going to talk briefly about that fight and this card just a little bit. But you can probably skip forward a little bit if you're like completely uninterested in my thoughts on this fight. All I'm going to say about the fight basically is, wow, like we are on fire with fights recently. I won a big bet. I mean, big bet for me. I posted on Instagram. Speaking of which, if you don't follow me on Instagram, go give me a follow, dude. I post there relatively often now. And also, if you don't subscribe to my channel, like here's the thing, I can see my analytics. There are a lot of you guys that watch like a lot of my videos and aren't subscribed, which is fine, but not really, Like I never ask anybody for money. You understand, like most YouTubers are like figuring out ways to try to like juke money out of their viewers. That's not, I never ask you guys for money. I don't ask you to buy my merch. I don't even have merch. But like, I could do a subscription. I'm not doing any of that stuff. All I ask is that if you consistently watch my videos, just subscribe. You don't even need to ring the bell, dude. Like, I can see half my viewers, my consistent viewers, are not subscribed. Come on, man. That's all I'm asking. Click a button, just so I know. That's the only metric I care about. Anyway, but thank you everybody for the ongoing support. But so let's talk about this fight super quick. So, Yair Rodriguez is an absolute savage. That's all I can say. Those two guys, incredible fight. Now, let's talk about the Conor McGregor video, okay? So let's actually watch that really quick right now. Boom.
He is the UFC's #1 ranked featherweight contender, fighting out of Holloway. Here is the former UFC featherweight champion of the world,
All right, so there's not a lot to it, but my boy Sam Strange sent me that, who actually has a really, really solid. I just said I don't do these things for money. Look at this. I'm about to plug his company, and he's not banned me because his stuff's legit. He owns a supplement company. The website is glaxon.com, GLAXON.com. He sent me a whole basket of stuff like probably 3 months ago, and I've just completely forgot to talk about it on the channel. But also because I hadn't tried the supplements, and now my wife and I have tried them. They're fucking awesome. Go give them a look. But so he sent me this. He sent me that video. Well, now I'm gonna plug his thing and I'm gonna call him out. And he was like, "Dude, what's wrong with this guy?" And I watched that video and I was like, "Oh." To me, there's nothing wrong with that. This is smart. Like what he's doing right here. Like, you could look at that and go, "Man, this guy's gacked out of his mind." And then he's like, "Oh." I mean, who knows? Who knows what he's doing? But posting that video is brilliant because what he's saying with that, why would he post that, right? Like, why would he post that? He's posting that to let the world know he's coming back, and he's coming back hungry. That's why he's doing it. He's like, he's so fired up to come back, he can't even watch a fight without walking around like a gorilla in his own house. Okay, that's why he's posting that. Like, he's getting fired up to fight. He's coming back with a vengeance. And if you put yourself in his position, right? And I'm not, like, here's the thing. I have talked a lot recently about how I view this sport. If you saw my videos about, like my video that I just did about Colby and Masvidal, right? So you see, like, the way that I think about this. Right? Like, yeah. There is a very deep level to why I love this sport that is about struggle and risk versus reward and the stakes and all that stuff. Hard work versus payoff, all that. But I'm also just a fan, right? Like, I'm also just a huge UFC fan. And Conor's book is written. There is no more, like at least, maybe it's because of how big he's already won, or maybe it's because of how he's behaved recently. I don't know. But like my connection to Conor's story as like, wow, look at what he did. Like, look at what he accomplished. That shit's over for me. Okay. Like, Conor's won. It doesn't mean that's all it means. It's like with some guys, it's like, wow, look at how high they got, whatever. Like, and I'm tied to him like that. Islam Makhachev, I'm really tied to that story because of all the stuff with Khabib's dad and, Dustin Poirier. All that. But like Conor, that's not that, right? But I love me an exciting fight, and I love me a good buildup, and I love an unpredictable lunatic in terms of like Conor's the perfect kind of prize fighter. Even when he's just crazy, you're like, man, I can't wait to see this guy fight. Like, I can't wait to see this guy fight. So I really hope that he wins his next fight. I really do. And I think, what I think is going to happen, and, you know, I don't need to keep coming back to this, but I will just one more time say, I'm usually pretty good at predicting what they're going to do, and I'll tell you exactly how I know in this case. I think they're going to give him Tony Ferguson. And I know lots of people have talked about that, but specifically, I'll tell you exactly why. So I just actually wrote this email to Mix Molly, and I was saying that I almost was going to do this video where I was going to basically, I don't know if any of you guys watch the YouTube channel Valuetainment. It's an exceptional channel, right? And he does these videos, like he does a lot of interviews, but he does these other videos where he'll say like the history of the Chinese liberation or whatever, like, or the history between Iran and the United States. And he has this huge chalkboard and he writes tons and tons and tons of notes, and then he walks through them and he breaks it down in a way where you're like, damn, right? And I was going to do a video breaking down how I'm so good at predicting what the UFC is going to do based on certain hard and fast non-negotiable rules about how the business is approached, right? Like, it's not like magic what I'm doing. It's just there are certain things that I understand that are rules, like just rules that they follow. And I was going to outline all of them because I'm like, and then I was saying to Mixon, I'm like, look, then I realized it would be like a magician, you know, telling the crowd how they do the trick, and then it's probably not that special anymore because then anyone's going to be able to do it. So I'm not doing that video. But I will share I wrote out, like, just to demonstrate, like, I wrote this thing this long, and I was like, this is like maybe 1/5 of what the video is going to be, because I realized the more I thought about it, the more deep the algorithm goes in terms of how they make choices of what's going to happen. But on the most surface level, okay, you've got a couple things that are just hard and fast, right? You're always chasing pay-per-view buys. That is the North Star no matter what, okay? But when it comes to fighters and matchups, you've got a group up here that are your top tier fighters, okay? It is a small group. Your top tier fighters that are still in their prime, okay? And we're not talking like in their prime, like, the way that, like, I don't know, Islam Makhachev is. I'm talking like, in their prime where they're not still on the come up and they're not past their prime, okay? So it's like a lot of years, right? And that kind of group includes people like Conor McGregor, right? Masvidal still, Colby, Israel Adesanya, Islam Makhachev, Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, okay? Guys like that. And then you've got the next tier of guys, right? And so like Khamzat Chimaev would be, you have the next tier of guys. Now this tier of guys can include two types of fighters, right? One are former stars that have started to lose, okay? Former stars that have started to lose. Or very good fighters that might be in their prime, but they know will never be marketable, okay? Like, they're good enough to be in the conversation all the time, but the UFC knows they are not marketable. Like, they're never going to be able to make a star out of them. They know they'll never be able to drive pay-per-views with them, and it's just that simple, okay? And the way that they make fights in these areas have a lot to do with those two tiers, okay? And there are a lot of rules related to how you deal with fighters based on which tier they're in, okay? And one major rule is, when given the opportunity, you use a guy from tier 2 to elevate a guy from tier 1, okay? You're always trying to elevate guys from tier 1. The only time that you have two guys in tier 1 fight each other, ever, is when it's for a title or it's a headliner or it's a huge fucking fight, right? It's either a title eliminator where you're almost like you don't even really have a choice, and you will avoid that if possible if there are two guys who are stars in the same division and one of them's not the champion. You will absolutely avoid them fighting each other, because a loss, takes away your ability to promote a huge championship fight with one of those guys. So you're not going to see two tier 1 guys fight each other if it's not for the belt almost ever, okay? Except in the event that you do something like Colby and Masvidal, right? Now, the other thing is, and you think about the tier 2 versus tier 1, and there are some hard truths. If I started laying out who's in tier 2 versus who's in tier 1, there are some names in there where it would start to make sense when you look at how the UFC treated him. Stipe Miocic, as an example, is absolutely a tier 2 guy, even though he knocked out all these guys. He can't sell pay-per-views. Like, and that's nothing against him as a guy or whatever. These are just metrics, But so when it comes to the situation, now that's how I know for 100% sure they're not going to do Chandler versus Conor McGregor, because this is because they got two hard and fast rules going against them right there, okay? If you got a tier 1 fighter who is coming off 2 losses and they're still a tier 1 fighter, you are going to throw the whole book at them to make sure that you give them the absolute best chance to win their next fight. There is absolutely no fucking chance that you would put 2 tier 1 fighters against each other in a non-title fight when both of them are coming off 2 losses. Fucking never. It would never happen. Fucking never. Okay? Never. You would never do it. You're breaking 2 of the absolute never breakable cardinal rules at the same time. It would never happen. Okay? They won't break either of those rules. Now, if you think that there's an exception to this rule, I'm telling you that what you're looking at is you think someone's a tier 1 fighter who's not a tier 1 fighter, okay? Like, these rules are fucking solid, not breakable. I don't know if the UFC is aware of it or not. I would imagine that they are, but like, I'm telling you that like, this is an algorithm, this is machine learning shit. Like, there are no exceptions to these rules, okay? And, you know, and again, that's why I like with Masvidal and Diaz, you got 2 tier 1 fighters that are not fighting for the title. So what do? You create an entire fucking event for it. You make them headline, right? Okay. Now, so when it comes to Conor, he is the number 1 tier 1 fighter, and he's coming off of 2 losses. So what is the absolute most critical thing that you're going to do for his next fight? You're going to give him, like, you have to give him the fight that you think he's most likely to win, which, by the way, is exactly what they were doing with the first 2 Dustin Poirier fights. Dustin Poirier was a tier 2 fighter. It's yet to be determined now whether has elevated to a tier 1 fighter because he beat Conor, because that happens. Nate Diaz wasn't a fucking tier 1 fighter until he beat Conor, and then he became a tier 1 fighter, right? It's not like, you know, not all people are stuck in their tier. You can do something. There can be an inciting incident that bumps you up there, right? Like if Leon Edwards has some insane flying knee knockout over some guy, gets on the microphone and tells the world to go fuck themselves, then boom, he's a tier 1 fighter, you know? But you are where you are when you're there, okay? And yeah, so Conor being the number 1 tier 1 fighter, they're going to give him a matchup that gives him the most likelihood to win. Now there's another rule, okay? There's another rule. For tier 1 fighters, you can't give them an opponent that is not at least a tier 2 fighter, okay? Because there are lots of fighters that are out there that are below tier 2, that are guys that don't really have a name. They're up and comers. They're young. They're 3-3 in their last 6 fights. Guys that are, you know, tier 2 is still elite in the UFC. They're just not tier 1. There's only a handful of tier 1 guys. Like it's extraordinarily rare for you to have more than 3 tier 1 fighters in any given weight class. Okay, that's rare. Very rare, actually. Like in the heavyweight division, heavyweight is it's hard, man. It's like heavyweight is historically hard, right? Brock Lesnar was your most recent, like, big time tier 1 heavyweight. Cain Velasquez too. Francis will get there if they put the marketing behind him. But what's going on with him is obviously because he hasn't signed a new deal, they're hesitant to put marketing behind him. What my opinion, and this is just my opinion, and I've spoken to his team about this too, is like, I think if and when he signed a new deal, the UFC will start piling marketing behind him, especially like if he beats Cyril and then he's the remaining heavyweight champ. I think they'll start marketing the fuck out of him. I think they've been, because they did market the shit out of him before the first Stipe fight, and then things got weird between him and the organization kind of, and then anyway, it's neither here nor there. But so with Conor, I think they're going to give him Tony Ferguson, because Tony Ferguson is a tier 2 fighter that still has a big enough name, but they think is very likely for Conor to beat, right? Because that literally, whoever they put Conor with, rest assured, that is the tier 2 fighter that they are most confident Conor will beat. And tier 2 fighters are expendable in order to elevate tier 1 fighters. Tony has lost 3 in a row, okay? He's lost 3 in a row. Like he is, in their mind, he is a tier 2 on his way to out the door, or at the very least, like, you know, like he is a stepping stone at this moment, like, and he's a stepping stone they can use once. That's why they're going to be absolutely surgical with where they use Tony Ferguson. They're not going to give him to Nate Diaz if Nate Diaz doesn't sign a new deal. Even though that fight would be insane, they're not going to use Tony Ferguson, you know, to elevate Nate Diaz when he's going to leave right afterwards. Like Tony Ferguson is like a wild card. You know, like he's a wild card in your hand, because he's a big name, big star that they can use to elevate someone because they think most people are going to beat him and they can only play it once. I think it'll be Conor, my opinion. So here's the thing about that though, right? Here's the thing about that. Tony's lost 3 in a row. Okay? Tony's lost 3 in a row. And so when you look, you're like, oh, he's washed. It's like, mate, look, he's 38 years old or 37, 38 years old, whatever. Lost 3 in a row, and that looks bad. Here's the thing. When it comes to Conor, though, I actually don't think Conor's washed at all. I actually do not think Conor is washed even a little bit. I think what I saw from the beginning of the Dustin Poirier, I just think people don't understand how good Dustin Poirier is. Like, I really think that Dustin is that good, and also, whatever. Bottom line, what I saw at the beginning of that Dustin Poirier fight was a guy who is fast, powerful, dominant. You give him, like, he is fucking dangerous still, right? But we know what Conor is, okay? Conor's a bully, and he will go in there and fuck people up in the first couple rounds. You take him into deep water. I have never seen him dig deep to get a guy out of there. I've seen him dig deep and and pull a round out in order to win, a 5-round fight like over Nate Diaz or whatever. And I'm not saying, like, he's got heart, obviously, but he is just one of those guys that gets less and less dangerous and more vulnerable as the fight goes on, okay? Now, Tony Ferguson, he lost to Justin Gaethje because Justin Gaethje picked him apart and beat the living fuck out of him. And it's totally possible that that's exactly what Conor would do also. If Conor can keep his pace up that he can put on in the first round, I think that's highly likely that's what will happen, right? But the other 2 fights, the Oliveira fight and the Dariush fight, have no bearing on the Conor McGregor fight. None. Right? Like, none. I mean, the fact that they took him down, held him down, and dominated him on the ground, what the fuck does that have to do with the Conor McGregor fight? It has absolutely nothing to do with the Conor McGregor fight. Okay? So, I actually think Tony is more dangerous to Conor than people are going to give him credit for, because he has tremendous cardio, and Conor's weaknesses match up with Tony's strengths. That's how you break down fights. It's like, where are they strong and where's the other guy weak? And if you see somewhere where a guy's real strong and the other guy's real weak, that's where a guy's vulnerable. So that is what I think they're going to do. I think they're going to put Conor with Tony, and I think that'll be that. And then who knows? I mean, it totally depends on which Conor comes back. Like, if Conor, the guy, if Conor's back to training, he's sharp, he's not boozing, and he's ready to fucking kill, I think he's going to come back. Oh man, I can't wait, dude. I can't wait to see when he comes back, because now he has embraced the bad guy thing. Here, this is something I actually seriously want you guys to understand. The first time when he had the bad boy stint, like the really big bad boy stint, where he got arrested, then he punched the old man, and all that shit, the assault charge, girls accusing him of stuff. He still had a brand to protect. Like, it was like the Proper 12 thing. His sales dipped. Like, he started losing things, right? Now, he's not losing anything. He sold Proper 12. He's on a deal with Proper 12. Sold Proper 12, 9-figure deal, and then he's still representing the brand, which means they're paying him every year, and they're paying him per contract, right? That's how that works. Okay, you sell your company, you get a big lump sum, and you stay on for a certain number of years, whatever. That might be a lifetime deal for Conor, who knows? He's probably getting paid $20, $30 million a year by these guys, some huge number, and that money comes in no matter what. And so he can go out and punch 1,000 DJs, and it's not going to affect his money. It's not going to affect. So he can fully embrace his dark side, and there are going to be very few repercussions. And I'm just interested to see what that translates into the octagon. Maybe it means he doesn't train hard and he comes in and he gets his ass kicked, or maybe it means he comes in and he's like a very dark, mean version of himself that's really hard to root for, but he's violent and dangerous and super fun to watch. And then I get to see him fight Gaethje, and it'll be fucking amazing. Or Chandler. I would love to see him fight Chandler. It's just not happening when they're both coming off 2 losses, right? It's not that is not going to happen now. It'll happen if they both get a win. Right? If they both get a win and they can make it make sense where those 2 fight and the winner is a title shot, then they can do that, right? Which is exactly what they did with Gaethje and him. They'll fight each other if it's an elimination for a title shot, right? So, yeah. Yeah. That's pretty much what I got. So, if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. Peace.